dirt road off a 2-lane past a shot up county sign. Squeaking of a backyard screen door letting you know that it's
The Putnam Personalities podcast exists to highlight the good, the positive, and the inspirational in our community. This episode is not an endorsement of any political or religious ideology. This podcast is a simple interview to get to know our friends, neighbors, leaders, and colleagues on a more personal level. Sit back, grab some sweet tea, and enjoy today's interview.
like home to me.
Hello, listener and viewer of the Putnam Personalities podcast. My name is Jason, and I'm the producer. And when you're producing something, I guess you have to take full responsibility. So here I am, going to take full responsibility. Just want to let you know I kind of messed up this week. I had Mr. Paul Adamczyk on to do an interview. And at the end of the interview, I usually walk up to the iPad and I usually say, "Oh no, I forgot to push record. We have to do it all over again." And most people go, "Oh no." Some people are like, "Okay, that's cool," or "No problem," or but in this case, I walked up to the iPad and I said, "Oh no, my iPad was out of memory," and that wasn't a joke. Unfortunately, this time, I did not do due diligence to make sure that I had enough memory to record the episode with Paul. Paul is our county commissioner, District 5 seat holder here in Putnam County, and unfortunately, I was not able to give him the opportunity as I gave his opponent. I have tried to play fair with the political process here. I do not pick sides. I don't endorse candidates. Even as pastor, the people in my church don't have a clue who I vote for. I don't play like that, and that's a personal decision. But with that being said, when I do the podcast, I want to make sure everybody had an even playing field, and I gave his opponent plenty of time to come on and have a conversation, just like I tried to offer Paul. So with that being said, today's interview was cut short. I wanted to make sure the viewer knew, because the video just kind of ends. And usually at the end of every video, every episode, I say, "Thank you for coming on." I shake the person's hand usually, and I'll say, usually my ending words are, "God bless." And in this case, it kind of cuts off and that's it. I just want to apologize to both you, the viewer, the listener, and to Paul himself for that. I take full responsibility. And I asked him, "Do you want me to still release it?" He said, "Yeah, that's fine." He wasn't upset about it. And so today's interview is a shorter one than normal, and I do hope that you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy our conversation. The Putnam Personalities podcast is not political, it's not religious. I say that almost every episode. Sometimes I reiterate it again during the episode. My goal is to focus on the good, the positive, and the inspirational within our county. I didn't plan on going into politics, but with the political process so close to us recording, I thought it'd be a great time to get to meet our candidates on a more personal level. And that's what I strove to do. I think we were successful with that. And so with that being said, this is the Paul Adamczyk interview, and may God bless.
You can click a button
And start the camera and all that?
start and stop.
I'm
yeah.
sure there's, I mean, you probably don't know me you know me, but I am not very technically inclined.
Yeah.
So like,
I'll find
This
out what
is-
the app they use because I think it's free.
oh, is it?
And I'll get it.
And I
to you.
use a thing called CapCut, and that's all I do is I go on CapCut, I take the video, I trim it at the end, and then I throw it on there. I throw the picture in the front, throw the music, a picture on the end, and I'm done. It's just, it takes me
okay.
like, it's very cheesy, but
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be honest with you, like I'm not a,
Well, you put out a bunch of them. So
and I'm
that's
not
cool.
even, I'm not monetized either, so I don't make any
Right.
money off this. It's just more of a hobby. So anyway.
Cool.
Well, today I'm with Paul Adamczyk. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Adamczyk?
Adamczyk, like two first names.
Okay, did you say Adamczakly?
Adamczyk.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
I like to say Adamczakly. Okay.
Exactly, Adamczyk.
So I know you because you guys, your family, you all came to this church for a while when you first moved here, and I actually had the honor of talking to Sarah more about what salvation means in the Bible,
Absolutely.
and had the opportunity to baptize her, so that was pretty cool. But I still remember the first time I met y'all, and if I'm not mistaken, I was going to look up the date, but we had a missionary that is in Bulgaria,
Yeah.
And they were here visiting the church. A friend of mine from elementary school, and he was preaching. If I'm not mistaken, I was sitting in the back of the church that morning, and he happened to be up at the platform and mentioned Buffalo, New York. You guys came in, and when you guys walked in, you actually heard that, and you're like, so then we realized that you guys had just moved there from New York. That was like 2016-ish?
It's around 16, yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of gets a little more interesting that because they actually knew the family, the Lockers, who actually introduced me to Christ. So
Really?
the family of the Lockers, who were missionaries as well, but also lived down the street from us when I was a child, is the family that brought us to church every Sunday. So when we got into conversations with, that's the people that had the limo, right?
Yeah.
With all their families. So when we got into conversations, and they also knew the pastor of the church that I went to and where I went to high school, which was the Blue Church in Eden, New York, which is where I grew up. So it was kind of interesting that they were from there, and then we had some cross ties of people.
I didn't even know that. So I have to say this, though, because I don't want people to think that we have missionaries that drive limos. But in fairness, this family has like 12 kids, and when they were coming back for what they call furlough, they started to look for a vehicle to purchase, and they actually found a limo for like $5,000. It was a big stretch. It was a Ford Explorer, I think it was. It was like cool. $5,000. They bought it. Had a big spare tire on the top. It had like a miscolored door on the side, and it stunk bad. I mean, it had a bunch of kids in there, a bunch of boys. They all had boys at the time, and boy, it smelled like a locker room in that thing. But they weren't fancy or rich, but no,
absolutely.
It was fun. But anyway, we got to know you a little bit then. I saw not your oldest daughter, but I saw your second oldest daughter, and I won't mention names. I don't want to do that in here, but I saw her a few weeks ago, and I told her, I said, hey, I still have somewhere in my office, I have God. And she came to me one day, and she's like, here you go. And she gave me a little God. She called it God. Yeah. And I remember it has a big head and has like one arm that's short, one arm that's really long, and the legs look like like he's bow-legged. But she had made me a little craft or something in Sunday school, and she's like, here's God. And so I have it in my office, so I couldn't find it. I was going to bring it today, but I know it's awesome.
In there. And she's still, and her name is Grace. I don't mind saying her. She still is absolutely into art. That's what she does now. So she actually has sketchbooks that she just keeps drawing and keeps painting and keeps doing stuff. We had the kids we have a shed that's where the old well shed used to be. Okay. And they all did full murals, and we bolted them to the shed basically. So they're all into it, but Grace is the one that's taken it to the extreme as far as her talent and her interest. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. We get to know your oldest daughter. I think when y'all came, she wasn't living here, but she moved down from New York. Yeah. I guess she lived with her mom there, but when she moved here, my daughters, they were in school together. I think they did culinary art together with Chef Tyson. And so, but anyway, so our families got to know each other a little bit back then. But haven't really, we all heard about a little less than a year. But since then, I don't really see you a lot. Well, I do see your black van drive by quite a bit as I'm walking, but we don't really talk much anymore. Your life has got probably a little bit more complicated. And so is mine. We've managed to fill it. Obviously, now we have 5 kids that are all in school. Hope actually graduated in 2020, but outside of her, we have 4 that are in school. We're doing the youth director at Woodlawn Baptist with the county commission, and my full-time job with a computer company. I'm very busy. Okay. And the boys are interested in doing some numismatics, which is coins. Okay. So we've taken my hobby, and they're kind of buying and selling stuff for fun and trying to learn a little bit about commoditizing things and running a little business. That's cool. So we're really busy, but we always have time if we need to. I was thinking about that last night, actually, because I remember when you came here, you were selling coins or you were trading coins and stuff. And we watched a show last night. Don't remember what it's called. I think it's on the History Channel, but they were out in south of here, and they were digging. There's a ship that landed or there's a bunch of ships that I guess they got hit by a hurricane. They were English, if I'm not mistaken, ships. Boy, I should have paid attention more yesterday. But they had a shipwreck of like 4 or 5 ships. Yeah. And it was right off the coast of Florida. That's why they call it the Treasure Coast. I didn't know that. And so, anyway, with all that being said, we were watching that last night. I was thinking about the interview this morning. And this guy had all kinds of coins that were it was crazy the stuff he had. Doubloons and stuff. Yeah. So our interest in it Sarah and I owned an auction house in New York. So we actually did coin auctions as part of our business. And I had an interest in it because I inherited my grandfather's coin collection when I was about 12 years old. 2 years after he passed, my father finally gave it to me, which was cool. So I still have most of that today. So just that's where the interest came from. Then the kids, when they were real little, used to go to those auctions, and they'd sit there and
just got into it because they got to see a lot of the different coins, and coins from other countries too.
Right.
Are really interesting. So it's been a hobby of mine since basically I was 12 years old because it was instilled in me through my grandfather.
Is there a certain coin that you have that's considered your prize coin?
I guess one that most people would know is the 1909 VDBS, which is the original wheat penny. So I do have two of those. One that I would love to be able to find 5 of them in a way that I could afford them, but they're very expensive. But so that each of my children has one when I pass or whatever. But so far we only have 2.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
We're looking for 2 more if
anybody's watching. You know. And I don't know, honestly, I laugh when I say that. I was telling in the interview yesterday, I told Sims. I'm getting so. I've had so many interviews lately. I'm trying to figure out everybody's names, but Sims, and I said, I don't know if anybody's watching this thing or not. I said it shows like a certain amount of views on my thing. That's great, but I've not yet had anybody at Walmart stop me and ask for an autograph or nothing like that. Yeah. So I've not had anybody want me to anyway.
Well, I've been throwing myself out online for years now, and no one's ever asked me for an autograph yet either. So
that's good. Well, the bank, but other than that, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about Paul Adamczyk first. As a kid, you grew up. I guess you were born in New York, or
I grew up in upstate New York, outside of Buffalo, New York, in a small town called Hamburg.
Okay.
When I was 12, my mother married her husband, which was Jim, who became my stepfather, who lived here with us for a couple of years, actually, before he passed. And we moved to a town called North Collins in New York, which is on the border of Eden and North Collins. So I went to North Collins High School, or junior high school, for about a year. Then I transferred to Eden, which is a small agricultural town. And then after that, when I graduated, I went to college, and then I went in the Navy, and I worked for EMC Corporation. So I've lived all over the country and traveled all over the world as a result of that. So my roots really have been detached from upstate New York and Western New York because I've lived just about everywhere and been about everywhere. And this is actually my 3rd time living in Florida. When I was a young child and my mother and father got divorced, we lived in Hollywood, Florida for a while with my grandmother. And then in the Navy, I was stationed in Orlando. And then this is the 3rd time here. So
cool. So real quick, what year did you graduate? What year did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 1990.
Okay. So you're a little older than me.
Oh, am I?
I didn't know that. I'm 47.
Yes, I have more wisdom. No,
I'm
slightly older, but we're close.
Well, I guess because of
I always figured we were about the same.
Well, because of kids' ages, I thought I thought I was older than you.
Yeah,
so
we started.
I got a grandkid already.
We started pretty late, so.
Okay, you have a grandkid now. So, all right. So, where'd you go to college at?
I went to Syracuse University.
Okay, very nice. What's their mascot?
The orange. Well, now it's the Orange because they want to be politically correct. It used to be the Orange Men. So I don't know what that's all about. It's kind of embarrassing, but they changed it several years ago.
The orange. It's just
the
orange. Really?
It's just the orange. And it's not obviously an orange like grows on a tree. I mean, that is the mascot is a big round orange thing with a ball cap on, but no, it doesn't make any sense. So.
Okay, it's funny. Sounds like something you'd see in Florida, but not in New York. That's weird. Do they have orange trees in New York?
There's a few, like if you go to like one of those glass enclosures, what do you call those things? But no, it's not something that can successfully be grown in New York.
All right, I didn't think so.
Apples, plenty of apples.
Okay, I'm sorry. That kind of struck me funny. I didn't know that. So all right, so
and I went there because that's where my stepfather went. So I followed his. That was his.
But you went to the Navy, you said?
Yeah, then I went to the Navy after that.
All right, so you traveled the world. What's your favorite country you've been to, other than the United States?
I would say Japan. And Japan, really? I actually didn't travel to in the Navy. I traveled to with my work. And I never intended to go to Japan. But if anyone has the opportunity to go to Japan, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
I spent 2 months there and loved everything about it. It was very interesting. The culture was interesting. The access to anything you want. The food there, the quality of the food, even though they really don't grow a lot of it there, was better than it is in a lot of places in the United States, which makes absolutely no sense because they don't have a huge agricultural economy.
Right.
But fresh
we send them our best.
We send them our best and I guess you pay for it because it's not a cheap place to be. Luckily, I was there for work, so I really wasn't costing me very much.
I had a friend. I lived in San Diego for a year.
Yeah.
And long story, but a friend named Kelly at the time, he was in the Marines. He got out and worked for Lockheed, and now he works for Boeing. But anyway, he was in Japan, and he had this huge, of course, back then, a big camcorder, and he made these videotapes, and I forget what he called them, but we call them the Kelly videos.
Yeah.
But he was in Japan.
they did a couple things. Like one day the barracks, they got all new mattresses in the barracks. Okay. So they had this big pile outside the barracks of these mattresses, and he said he did this video. He got in trouble. They were like getting on top of the barracks and like 2-story barracks. They were jumping off and landing on the mattresses, and he destroyed a car because the car he had, I guess the taxes were so high because I don't know the whole issue.
Yeah.
He did this video and he destroyed a car. But the funniest one I think he did was when they went to vending machines. Yeah. And they would just like buy something and they would videotape like buying out of the venue and drinking whatever it was. And they had no idea what it was. Yeah. And they tried to read it and then they drink it and it's like.
And there's a lot of highly sugary, fruity drinks.
Or fishy tasting drinks as well here. So.
I didn't try any of those, but some of the fruity tasting ones are pretty good. And some of them you can get here now, right? If you go to the right grocery store, right? Ocala or something.
That's cool.
From when I was in Japan, it was kind of cool too, because you're talking about electronics. That was one thing that was much cheaper there. So I did buy at the time some camcorders. Okay. At that time, it was when digital photography and stuff was first coming out. Some Nikon, really nice cameras and things that I sent back to family that said, hey, while you're there, see what the price of this new one is. And it was hundreds of dollars cheaper.
Oh, really?
It was cheaper to buy it there and ship it home. So we did buy some of that stuff. There was a little bit of custom stuff they had to go through, but the cost was only a couple of dollars.
Assuming a lot of it's made there, is that why?
I think so. There's just literally electronic shops like on every corner in Tokyo. Like it's weird. It's different. Like I've been in New York City dozens of times. Completely different atmosphere.
Well, it's. I know when I was in Hungary for a missions trip, it was interesting because here, if you want to get air conditioning parts, you go to a warehouse. And, But there, it's like every street corner had a little shop that sold little things and auto parts, like a little hole-in-the-wall auto parts store. It was just literally like a 10 by 10 room. It was like, it's kind of weird. Bakeries and
I really didn't see any auto parts stores when I was in Tokyo. A lot of food places because I think the population is so dense that there's just tons of restaurants, and then a lot of electronics. Those were the two main retailers that you would see. Okay. And a lot of the big entertainment districts too.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's pretty. And I'm surprised that they are what it seems like. A lot of Americans that go there, I've not heard a lot of complaints. Yeah. So, going back to World War II and what happened over there, I'm really surprised that they're so welcoming of Americans, and the relationship is pretty good between our countries.
Yeah, they're hugely welcoming. They actually will. A lot of them will come and talk to you, like if you're out at a restaurant and stuff. If you're out at night in a nightclub, and they'll talk to you because they want to practice their English. So it's kind of interesting. I did have the opportunity while I was there. That was the cool thing is it's like being here. You could take a flight real quick to Atlanta or to New York City or something from here. You could go to Australia or Singapore, and it's like a cheap flight, like it would be just to go somewhere regionally here. So we did have the opportunity to go to Singapore and Australia a couple of times, partly for work, partly just for fun. And Singapore is a whole other experience because most of the people there actually speak English. So it's just it's a whole nother vibe than in Tokyo, where you have people you're talking to and you're trying to get them to understand what you're trying to order off the menu, things like that. But a lot of the people in Tokyo did speak English as well.
So was Singapore at one time owned by England, or what? Were they a colony of England? Or?
I'm not really sure. I never really looked into Singapore much. I know China thinks they own them now. So
China owns everybody now. Yeah, if we get into politics, we can talk about the whole BRICS thing. That's
right.
I've been kind of looking a little bit into that. The BRICS. Yeah. Have you followed any of that?
No, not the BRICS.
Ooh, yeah, that's where China is making bridges.
Building their islands.
They're
building islands.
They're funding
their land too.
Unfortunately, I think our country, and it's a good thing, we're helping other countries defend themselves. So we're helping them with weapons and stuff. But China has gone a different route. They're helping to build bridges and roads and infrastructure, and they're really gaining ground. And a lot of people are cutting off the U.S. because of China's new interference. So, yeah, we live in a strange world. Every time I watch the news, I'm like, this is. I think I've read about this somewhere before. It's kind of interesting. So, let's see. After Japan, you came back to the state you worked for. You said IMC.
Yeah, EMC was the company I worked for, and I still work there today. We merged with another IT company. I've been there for 27 years, so so still there.
So what exactly is your line of work? Like, what do you do?
So currently, I'm actually the director of technology education for the company I work for, and around AI and machine learning. So the goal there is basically to write the documentation and things and deliver it around the globe to all the different. Right now, we're going through a transition. We literally just laid off about 6,000 people yesterday. None of my people got laid off, so I was thankful for my perspective. But we're going through a transition to AI, and part of that model is with AI and machine learning is if we're not going to take that on and show how we can be more efficient with it, how do we convince our customers of that? So we're pushing a lot of our sales and other things out to the what we call the channel, which is smaller companies that basically represent your products and sell them. So part of our objective now is to get that training and stuff so they can represent our products, utilize them properly, and install them properly out to all the partners in the world and our customers. So that's what I'm doing
AI.
now.
A lot of people are scared of AI. What are your thoughts on?
I think AI has some very good uses. I can tell you from my involvement that it has some very bad uses. There are some bad players out there looking. There's companies out there that are going to use it for great things, but also are going to use it to harvest data and do things that are only to their benefit. So and companies have been doing that with every technology that's ever come out in the history of the world. I'm not a supporter of it personally, from a personal perspective, but it is what it is. It's unavoidable at this point, and I hate to say that. Our biggest way to combat it is to not use it. And we got to realize something is this Chat GPT and all these little apps that we can get on our phones, that's not what AI and machine learning is. It's about a bigger picture. That is the way to normalize it to the masses so that we go, oh, this is cool. I can type this in and get an output. That's not the end goal of any of these big corporations.
That's what I'm a little leery of it. I haven't used anything AI. In fact, I've even seen now where people are using AI to write books. They're using AI to do artwork, and I personally detest all that. Like I want to. If you're going to write something, I want to know what you wrote and it was from your mouth. Right. If it's your story, not one mix of details that AI throw in there. I'm very leery of it personally, but I know you also can't avoid it.
It's also, there is more to it than that. That's what I'm saying.
Right, exactly.
There is good things. Like a good example is there are companies out there, biotech companies, that are redoing the DNA of humans and being able to model that and make changes and see how that affects to cure disease and things. So there are absolutely good intentioned people out there utilizing it. It's not just about words. They can do AI with just about everything. If you listen to Elon Musk, who I personally am not a huge fan of, if you listen to Elon Musk, he's talking about having AI generated robots that can do work and make based decisions. At some point, where does that get to further into the depersonalization of our society?
Right.
And the first time I was ever published in my life was when I went to Syracuse. I was 17 years old, and I wrote a paper on the depersonalization of society because of the internet. And it was talking about, like what we have today, online banking, all these things. Our local bank here in Interlochen tried to close their doors and let you only go through the drive-through and participate with them online. Luckily, they've opened it back up so you interact with the tellers and stuff.
Right.
If we lose that connection with people where we can no longer interact one-on-one, face-to-face, and everything's done from a pad, what's the world going to be? It's going to be, the cartoon movie where the robot picks up the trash and stuff.
And Jetsons?
No, it's a newer one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I don't remember the name of it. But basically everyone becomes so not leaving their little space that they forget that there is a world out there that you can grow things, that you can interact with people, and hopefully we never get there.
I see that
but I think we're already on that path.
I think we can. I'm not a political person, but I see a lot of things happening. Like I like to travel, but I see now places I even grew up in, places I've been, a lot of places like the houses are gone. You've got apartments going up, and then people now are not traveling out as much anymore. They're staying more in their own little, which is fine to be involved in your own community, but we love the freedom of travel. I guess now they're trying to, in the future, thinking about cutting off how many miles you're allowed to travel per year and trying to monitor those things. Yeah. There's a lot of,
I will say I definitely would not be one that would obey that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff.
And it's kind of interesting, like you talk about travel and all those other things. That's the way a lot of people think that's how governments overall are going to try to control people, by controlling their access to goods, to services, to the society. Now, if you think about back in the old days, there's a lot of people that want to get back to the 1800s and stuff. People didn't travel much. They stayed in their community, but also their community was the focus of their life. So everything they did was about their community. So they went to the church, they went to the schoolhouse, they went to the one guy that sold the hardware, and then they went to one guy that sold the thing. they traded what they made with other people. Right. That's not where we are today. You can click a button and have anything delivered to your house within a day, usually. Yeah. And we don't live near a huge city. I mean, we're only 45 minutes, a couple hours from huge city centers. But I could have stuff to my house tomorrow. I mean, I don't like shopping, so I haven't been in like Walmart in probably 2 years. My wife does go. She went yesterday. But it's just, it's weird.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, times have changed.
I think it's that, and that's partly why I've been teaching my kids at our house to grow things, to have animals, to do things, to sustain things if something ever was to happen where we lost the power grid or any of these other things that people talk about. Not because I'm worried about that, like it's not something that bothers me every day, but why not be prepared for something that could happen?
Well, if we lose the power grid, you don't have a job.
Yeah. I'm all right.
I mean, if the internet goes down, you don't have a job. I mean, that's part of your job. And those things are crazy because we see like a technology crash, whether how it happens, we don't know. There's like conspiracies, but T-Mobile or something goes down or Verizon for a day, people are flipping out. They can't check their voicemail. They can't check their email. They can't post their selfie of what they ate. No one knows what they ate for lunch now. And
it was only like 25 years ago where you were on party. Well, no more than that, I guess. I guess it was in the 80s when we had a party line. Our home phone, when I was a little kid, was a party line. So if the neighbor was on the line, you couldn't call out till they were off the phone.
Oh, really? I never even heard of that.
Yeah. It was pretty wild. It was cheaper. I think it was like a third the price if you shared with a couple neighbors the phone number and stuff. And my mom did that because she was a single mom with all three of us kids and was working several jobs. So
interesting.
So we had a party line. It was interesting. You pick up the phone and the neighbor Michelle would be on the phone and you'd be like, okay.
Are you sure? Or you'd be more like,
yeah. And you could. I don't remember if you could do that or not, but it would tell you something.
Somebody was on the
line. I was a little kid,
but
I do remember there was times you'd pick it up and there'd be someone on there. So
that's interesting. Yeah. So with all that being said, now you're running for I guess, okay, so quick question. So you came from New York, and then I know you ran for school board, I think, the first time when you were here. But what made you, you moved, you would think a lot of people move to Florida to retire. It seems like Paul moved to Florida and got busy right away.
Yeah.
So what made you
So my goal when I moved to Florida was literally to find a plot of land, which we hadn't had yet at the time that I ran for school board. And I'm not an overly extroverted person. I mean, I can turn it on for purposes of the campaigns and things, but I like to be by myself. I am a loner for the most part. So the goal was to have a good piece of property that we could grow some stuff on. We could teach the kids about wildlife. They could hunt on it. We didn't find a piece that they could fish, but that they could do some outdoor stuff on.